about 5 seconds time.
Okay, I'll count down. Welcome to today's webinar on working safely during coronavirus. My name is Andy Harrison and I work at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. This webinar offers guidance to help employers, employees and the self-employed working in close contact with others to understand how to work safely during the coronavirus pandemic. A quick housekeeping point before we start. There are controls at the bottom of your screen to
Sorry, I think we're just having some tech issues there. Andy, are you still there? No, we'll just give it a minute to see if Andy comes back for us. But it was just a quick housekeeping point before we start. There are controls at the bottom of your screen to pause the session and for adjusting video quality and sound. You can ask questions or provide a comment during the webinar by selecting the Q&A symbol on the right-hand side of your screen, typing your question in the compose box and then selecting send. As every business is different, we can't answer individual advice on exactly how you should implement the guidance in your specific circumstances, but we hope to be able to address the common areas of concern. As well as answering some of your questions about the guidance, we are keen to hear your feedback on how you have been able to implement the guidance in practice and to understand where you seek further clarification. We will use this feedback to help inform any future versions of the guidance. A recording of the webinar and links to useful information will be circulated to all participants following the webinar. I'm not sure if Andy's come back to us. I'll just carry on. So the purpose of today's webinar is to give you a practical framework to think about what you need to do to continue or restart operations. Today's webinar is designed to be relevant for people who work in or run close contact services businesses. This includes, but is not limited to, hairdressers, barbers, beauticians, tattooists, sports and massage therapists, dress fitters, tailors, and fashion designers. We'll discuss some of the key issues for those working in close contact services, including signposting to guidance on working in others' homes, collecting customer information to support NHS test and trace, and the potential consequences of non-compliance with the guidance. We'll then take some time to discuss your feedback on the Working Safely guidance and answer some questions. Please put your comments and feedback using the Q&A feature on the right-hand side of the screen as we progress through the presentation. Please note that this guidance applies to England. For links to this guidance and for the guidance for Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, search for Working Safely during coronavirus on gov.uk. Businesses operating in Leicester City and the borough of Oadby and Wigston should be aware that local restrictions are in place and close contact services will remain closed until at least the next review, which will take place by the 1st of August. The Safer Workplaces guidance is regularly updated. You should check for updates at gov.uk/workingsafely. Updated guidance on providing services that involve work in the highest risk zone, defined as the area in front of the face where splashes and droplets from the nose and mouth may be present, which can pose a hazard, will be provided as soon as possible. The Prime Minister has announced that from the 1st of August, if prevalence remains around or below current levels, all close contact services will be allowed to resume, including treatments on the face. No treatments are to be provided on the face until government advice changes, so you should continue to check for updates and further information. Each business will need to translate the guidance into the specific actions it needs to take, depending on the nature of the business, including the size and type of business, how it is organised, operated, managed, and regulated. You could also consider any advice that has been produced specifically for your sector. As many businesses operate in more than one type of workplace, such as a salon and working in others' homes, you may also need to use more than one of the guides as you think through what you need to do to keep people safe. I'll now hand over to my colleague Amy, who will provide a recap of the Close Contact Services guidance and some key issues. Over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Hayley, and thank you all for attending today. To echo Hayley's introduction, I'm here today to provide an overview of the Close Contact Services guidance, and I will not be able to cover every detail in the time that we have today. I encourage everyone who has not yet reviewed the guidance to access it using the link provided. I'll start with risk. Section 1 of the guidance is called Thinking About Risk. This is because the aim of this guidance is to encourage employers to identify risks associated with COVID-19 and to suggest ways these risks can be mitigated. All employers have a legal responsibility to protect workers and others from risk to their health and safety. I'm sure you are aware that a risk assessment is part of how you control risks in your workplace and should be normal practice. Failure to do a risk assessment that takes into account COVID-19 could constitute a breach of health and safety law, which in the case of serious breaches could lead to imprisonment for 2 years. We recommend that employers use the guidance produced by the government to help them conduct the risk assessment and put appropriate preventative measures in place. All employers should consult their workers on health and safety. The Health and Safety Executive have useful tools and guidance on conducting a risk assessment, including templates and interactive tools. Employers must also follow all instructions from authorities in the event of new local restrictions. Employers have a duty to reduce workplace risk to the lowest reasonably practicable level by taking preventative measures. To do this, you should work through the following steps. Increase frequency of hand washing and surface cleaning, including between clients. Use screens or barriers to separate clients from one another. Maintain 2 meters or 1 meters plus social distancing whenever possible. And for all close contact businesses, protective equipment in the form of a visor will be required to mitigate the risk. It is important to remember that no one is obliged to work in an unsafe environment. You should also remember to consider the individual needs of your employees. Shielding measures for clinically extremely vulnerable individuals remain in place until the 1st of August, and they should not come into work at this time. If clinically vulnerable individuals cannot work from home, they should be offered the option of the safest available on-site roles, enabling them to maintain social distancing guidelines. If they cannot maintain social distancing, you should carefully assess whether this involves an acceptable level of risk. Employers should further consider how to ensure that existing reasonable adjustments for employees with disabilities are COVID-19 secure, the health and safety risks for new or expectant mothers, the impacts of shift patterns and measures brought in by the guidance on those with caring responsibilities and religious beliefs. The protected characteristics of your employees and customers should be factored into your risk assessment and should inform the way you implement the guidance in your workplace. And finally, individuals who have symptoms of COVID-19, as well as those who live in a household with someone who has symptoms, should not physically go into work. The guidance details many things you can do to keep clients and visitors safe. This includes supporting NHS test and trace through keeping a temporary record of your clients and visitors for 21 days, calculating the maximum number of clients that can reasonably follow social distancing guidelines and limiting the number of appointments to reflect this. When booking an appointment, asking the client to attend on their own where possible, Minimising contact between different workers while serving a client, such as photographers, models, makeup artists and stylists in a photo shoot. And the use of changing rooms should be discouraged wherever possible. Social distancing should be maintained at work wherever possible. Mitigations you could put in place both in business premises and in other people's homes are as follows. Implementing physical changes like barriers or screens between clients in areas such as reception and waiting areas. Providing floor markings and signage to remind both workers and clients to maintain social distancing wherever possible. Discussing with the client ahead of a visit to their home to ask that social distancing is maintained from other members of the household. Minimising contact around transactions, for example, using contactless payments where possible. Scheduling appointments to avoid client congestion in waiting areas. Ensuring that only the client is present in the same room for appointments in the home. Staggering break times and using a safe outside area for employees. Workplaces should be kept clean to prevent transmission by touching contaminated surfaces. This will require frequent cleaning of work areas and equipment and of objects and surfaces touched regularly, such as door handles. You should consider using signage and posters to build awareness of good hand washing technique. Some measures particular to this sector include sanitising any reusable equipment, including tools, client chairs, treatment beds and equipment, and scissors used after each appointment and at the start and end of shifts. Using disposable gowns for each client, if possible. Encouraging staff not to wear their uniforms at home or to and from the workplace. Where the use of shower and changing facilities is unavoidable, you should set clear use and cleaning guidance for showers, lockers and changing rooms to ensure they are kept clean and clear of personal items. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, protects the user against health or safety risks at work, including items like gloves, eye protection, and face masks. Where you are already using such equipment to protect against non-COVID-19 risks, you should continue to do so. Where it is not possible to maintain social distancing, employees should wear a visor that covers the face and provides a barrier between the wearer and the client. Visors must fit the user and be worn properly. It should cover the forehead, extend below the chin and wrap around the side of the face. A screen may be used by practitioners working with clients' hands. Please note that a visor offers greater protection and face coverings are not an alternative for employees who wear a visor in close contact services. You should also strongly encourage clients to wear a face covering in enclosed public spaces such as salons or studios where social distancing may be difficult and when they come into contact with people that they do not normally meet. All workers should understand COVID-19 related safety procedures and be provided with clear, consistent and regular communication. Simple, clear messaging and visual communication such as whiteboards or signage should be used to explain any changes. Engagement with workers and worker representatives. Clear instructions on how to use and clean their PPE. And there should also be increased awareness and a focus on the importance of mental health during times of uncertainty. We will now briefly discuss a few issues that businesses in this sector have repeatedly raised with us. As Hayley has already mentioned, from the 1st of August, if the prevalence of coronavirus remains around or below current levels, all close contact services will be allowed to resume, including any treatments on the face, such as eyebrow threading or makeup application. We are currently working closely with the sector and public health experts to ensure that services in the highest risk zone can resume as safely as possible and in line with COVID-19 secure guidelines. The guidelines will be updated with new information on how to resume these treatments as soon as possible, and no treatments are to be provided on the face until the government advice changes. Another key issue I'd like to address today is collecting customer information for test and trace. You should assist NHS Test and Trace by keeping a temporary record of your customers and visitors for 21 days. You could use existing online booking systems to collect this information. We'll put 2 links to NHS Test and Trace guidance in the chat box. This guidance will tell you what information to collect, how to maintain records, and when to share the information with NHS Test and Trace. You may undertake treatments in other people's homes as long as you apply the COVID-19 secure guidelines for working in other people's homes, as well as the specific guidance for close contact services, and no one in the household has COVID-19 symptoms or is self-isolating. Before undertaking treatments in other people's homes, you may like to consider the following: discussing with households ahead of a visit to ask that social distancing guidelines, 2 meters or 1 meter with risk mitigation where 2 meters is not viable, are maintained between workers and householders if possible. You could ask that households leave all internal doors open to minimise contact with door handles. You could consider holding appointments outdoors or in well-ventilated rooms whenever possible. And if hand washing facilities are not accessible, you should carry hand sanitizer. The final issue for today is, can you force a business to close if they do not comply? The vast majority of businesses will want to do everything possible to protect their staff and customers. Local authorities and HSE monitor compliance, including through inspections and following up on concerns raised by individuals with them. If the enforcement authority finds that a business is not properly managing the risks, they can take a range of action, including issuing information and enforcement notices to prohibit or require changes to be made, and if those are not complied with, they will take tougher action like closing unsafe businesses, imposing fines, potentially unlimited or jail sentences of up to 2 years. Thank you for listening. I will now hand back to Hayley.
Thank you, Amy. Before we move on to looking at your questions and comments, we want to show you a short video of how a hair salon has implemented some of the changes.
My name is Matthew Sutcliffe. I am the co-owner of Tint. We are a hairdressing salon based in Leeds city centre, and our 21-strong team are a mixture of self-employed hairdressers, employed hairdressers and apprentices. It was a very scary decision to shut the salon, especially a week before lockdown. It's been a difficult 3 months not knowing when we're going to open again, but after hearing the news that we were allowed to open on the 4th of July, we put our protocol together. Our salon is 2,000 square foot, therefore we were in a very good position to adhere to the distancing guideline. All appointments will be pre-booked. Our team will be wearing visors, hand sanitizers and dispensers will be placed around the salon for all to use. Although it's not mandatory for clients to be wearing masks, we have also encouraged that as well, because we feel it would be a safer environment all round.
Perfect. Before we close today, we'll address some of the questions that have been raised. And I'd like to introduce Roz, our Deputy Director of Social Distancing and Safer Working at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. She's joined us to answer some of the questions, and we'll take a selection of those now and hopefully be able to respond to a couple of others at a later date. Roz, over to you.
Hi, thank you, and good morning everyone, and thanks to Amy for setting out so clearly what's in the guidance currently. Just to address one question first of all that came up in the Q&A about whether or not there would be further guidance. As Amy mentioned in her presentation, we are currently updating the guidance and we hope that we can get that published as soon as possible this week before these services resume on the 1st of August. There is a question in the chat about whether or not the guidance close contact services can apply to other sectors. Of course they can. The principles in the guidance, while we've developed them for people that work in close contact, there's absolutely no reason why the guidance can't be a read across to other types of work that are done. I think the other thing to say is if you are a mobile technician going into other people's homes, we also have guidance for home or from your own home. So there is also another bit of guidance that you can also look at. We've been asked specific questions on types of disinfectant. I think that will be difficult for us to answer right now. I mean, the guidance suggests that you use the normal disinfectants that you would use in your business, and I know that this sector is one that takes hygiene very very seriously. So if you are used to using certain types of disinfectants and cleansers, then I would suggest that you continue to use those. So I can't say there's a list of approved disinfectants or cleaning agents. On face coverings, I agree with the comment that people seem to mix up face covering and face masks. They are not the same thing. The face coverings are the ones that you can make at home using any kind of material, where face masks tend to be something that is more sturdy, manufactured elsewhere. So the guidance at the moment suggests for clients taking public transport, for example, that they need to wear a face covering. And that is perfectly acceptable if you choose to ask your clients when they come into your salon to wear some kind of face covering. What we wouldn't be expecting is that if you are treating someone, you are just using a face covering that you use at home. We would expect you to be wearing the visor as recommended in the guidance to protect your client from any sneezes or coughs or so that you may have. There is a question around why you need to wear a visor. As I've explained and is in the guidance, the recommendations that we have had so far from Public Health England and the Health and Safety Executive is that the visor is one very secure way of protecting your clients from any droplets from you. So we are advising wearing those visors until such time as we have other evidence that suggests there should be something else in place of that. So I would suggest that you do continue to wear the visors, and we've seen lots of evidence of salons, etc., with the therapists wearing the visors. There are questions around makeup artists and why they've been able to work on set. So when doing makeup on sets, it's usually with a small number of people, and it's the same people you see all the time. Whereas in a salon, you will be seeing different clients, quite a lot of different clients, and therefore the numbers and the proximity that you have to work with the clients, we think, is different. For the makeup artists, they are advised to work either from the side or behind and instruct clients to do things in mirrors, etc. So I think the situation is slightly different than if you're working in a salon and you're seeing many clients one after the other. There was also a question in relation to freelance makeup and wearing gloves. The guidance advises that where it is possible to wear gloves, that you should. But we also know that probably the best way to deal with this virus is to wash your hands frequently, sanitize your hands frequently. So if the treatment doesn't allow you to wear gloves, whether it's putting on makeup or it's doing some other kind of treatment where you need to be feeling the skin, then just make sure that you wash your hands repeatedly, even more during the treatment if it's possible to wash your hands. Beneficial for therapists in Scotland. I think the guidance is beneficial for therapists wherever they work, but I would assume that Scotland has produced its own guidance. So this guidance is for England only, and you should look to Scottish Government to see what guidance they have produced. I think, looking at the questions, that I have covered most of those that have come up, unless there have been some others whilst I've been talking.
Perfect. Thank you, Roz. I think that ends our session for today. I can see a few more questions have come through. So hopefully we'll be able to get some answers back as well, because we have had a few technical issues. So a recording of the web. Oh, were you back then, Roz? Did you want to add anything else?
Yes, thank you. I'm having real connectivity problems today. Sorry about that. I don't know if there were any other questions that I didn't pick up on, which I can't see any of the questions now. So I would suggest. Do you want to go ahead, Hayley, since I can't see anything right now?
No problem, and apologies to everyone. I think a few of us have been having some technical problems all whilst working from home. So what we'll do is we will gather the questions, because I can see more keep coming through. So we'll gather these and try and email round some answers as well. And just to know, also a recording of the webinar and links to all of this will be sent around to participants. To note as well, as this guidance will be updated over time, you should also continue to check for updates on gov.uk/workingsafely. And to stay up to date also with the latest business information on coronavirus direct to your inbox, please consider signing up for the Coronavirus Business and Employers Bulletin. At the same link, you'll also be able to sign up to receive our transition email bulletin, and this provides information and support for businesses to get ready for the new rules from January 2021, when the transition period finishes. You can find coronavirus business support information on gov.uk. I just want to say thank you very much to Amy and Roz, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. And again, sincere apologies for all of the technical issues, but we will circulate more information as soon as we can. Thank you. Goodbye.